I'm happy to be here. As Claudia mentioned, I've had the privilege of being up here a couple of times over the years. Love this conference. I don't have the opportunity or the time really to kind of do a lot of these speaking engagements anymore, but I sort of mark B2B MX on my calendar every year because this is when I get to talk to my peers. And so that's me. I'm the SVP of Marketing at MNTN. I'm also an adjunct professor at Northwestern. I teach a graduate level product marketing course. And most of my career has been in B2B marketing. Growth stage companies, large public companies, everything in between. And so this is the stuff that I live and breathe. And really, I'm kind of coming to you today as a peer. I just want to talk to you as a peer. Specifically, what I end up doing at this keynote every year is just giving away our strategy. Like MNTN, who here has heard of MNTN before? Show of hands. Oh my God, if only our CEO is here to see that. MNTN, really well-known B2B brand, fortunately. And so what I like doing is coming to this conference every year and just giving away our playbook and letting you know how we're kind of doing things. Today, consequently, we're going to be talking about a little bit about brand safety. I kind of want to sort of reposition brand safety in the context of B2B marketing, and we'll get to that. Then we'll talk about carrying over a lot of digital marketing strategies that you already know, carrying that over to connected television. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about how MNTN is doing CTV advertising. Of course, we operate a CTV advertising platform, but I'm like you. I'm someone who runs a B2B marketing team. And so how are we actually using CTV as part of our B2B marketing strategy? Just to kind of spoil it for you, it is one of the biggest fixtures of our whole advertising strategy. Can't turn it off. Now, starting with brand safety, I think everybody in this room already has an idea of what brand safety is. The traditional definition of it is really protecting your brand from being alongside or embedded within inappropriate content or misinformation. Totally valuable to consider. But consequently, it turns out that B2C marketers are a lot more sensitive to this than B2B marketers. And the reason for that isn't that their products are any more precious than B2B products, but that it's really a consequence of audience size. When in the case of B2C advertising, you're dealing with very large audiences, and your ads are far-reaching. And there's a real concern about where are my ads actually going to wind up on the web. And so that's really where you see a lot of the conversations oriented around brand safety. Now, this is a little different in the case of B2B because B2B, our audience sizes are significantly constrained. When I think of this, I think of a B2B marketing pal that I have who his total addressable market is 200, just 200 companies. That is the maximum universe. And it's a huge average order value, but the total audience size is just so small. And so what that means is that B2B marketers have to think about brand safety in a different way. It's not to say that it doesn't matter, but since your audience sizes are already constrained, you can't really be putting yourself in positions or using channels that are going to further constrain that audience size. And so that's the reason why B2B marketers sort of think about it in a different way. We don't want to jeopardize our brand with the placements that we're doing, but we also need to be considerate about making sure that we're using channels that still maximize our reach, because we just don't have the same benefits as B2C marketers with regards to reach. So at MNTN, this is kind of the way that I think about our advertising strategy, is to really be mindful of traditional brand safety during our most meaningful connections. Usually our initial kind of touch points via advertising are going to be on channels, namely connected television. In that case, I could be really sensitive to brand safety, but there's a really interesting sort of detail to that I'll get to in a moment. And then we balance risk during continued engagement. That's kind of how we deploy the use of social media advertising. And so these are precisely the notes that I really want you to crib with regards to how we're actually strategizing the coordination of all of the different advertising platforms that we're using, which I suspect are very similar to the same ad mix that you all have as B2B brands. Now, a point that I mentioned in my session yesterday that I want to kind of reiterate here is as we think about TV as B2B marketers, the first thing that I kind of implore you to do is think about the end user experience. I suspect everybody here is streaming television at this point. I suspect most of you are also streaming ad-supported TV. Now, what you're probably seeing during those ad breaks are just ads for a ton of consumer products. And basically, my first point here is just the mere act of advertising on streaming TV as a B2B brand, that alone is going to leave a really lasting impact on somebody that you're actually trying to sell to. Because again, like you, they're just being inundated with ads for consumer products. All the ones that insurance companies, auto brands, beverage brands, all of those. But they're not used to seeing B2B ads generally. And if you layer in all of the targeting capabilities, which we'll get to in just a second, you can really create a really impactful experience. For example, if someone is responsible for purchasing ERP software, they're not used to seeing ads related to ERP software on television. Imagine during an ad break between a McDonald's commercial and a Toyota commercial, they see an ad that's specifically speaking to them. Hey, are you somebody who procures ERP software? Well, this is why ours is so great. That's not a very good ad, but the point is that it's going to really stand out during an ad break because that's just not something that we're used to seeing. And this is good feedback that we get from our sales team all the time is I talked to a prospect and they said, oh yeah, I see you guys on TV. And that really sort of greases the wheels for the sales motion, which is fantastic. Now, social media doesn't really foster these moments. One sort of point that I make to my students all the time is social media advertising is a really sort of passive experience compared to something like television in that, if you think about that experience on X or Instagram, you're just blowing past ads as your primary purpose there is to just see content that you want to see. And so that's a very ignorable sort of experience as opposed to connected television on a platform like MNTN at least, it's going to be a non-skippable ad on long-form content. Now, there's another aspect of this that is also pretty impactful, which is the idea of premium networks. And this is a callback to that point about brand safety. Now, we've been doing CTV advertising as long as anybody else has, and we've tried everything at this point. And MNTN is a performance marketing focused CTV platform. And the way that we got there was kind of interesting. In the beginning, we served on all TV inventory that there was. And what we noticed was there's a lot of junk CTV inventory. And there's some ad platforms still out there that will kind of drive down the CPM, average CPM, because it could be expensive by kind of commingling some really obscure CTV inventory. But what we noticed was the users that were exposed to impressions on junk CTV inventory, really obscure TV networks, didn't convert. And unsurprisingly, it was the users that were served impressions on platforms like ESPN, Peacock, Max, you name it, all the name brand TV networks. Unsurprisingly, these were the users that actually visited the websites and actually converted on the websites. So when you see MNTN talk about, we serve on all these premium networks, it's not even necessarily, marketing positioning. It really is objectively true. We only serve on those networks, not just so I could be able to tell you we're on really premium networks, but because all of the data that we have shows us that it's impressions that are served on these very premium networks that actually lead to users making an action. It's not going to happen on those really obscure networks or maybe some remnant broadcast TV inventory that you see some other platforms have as well. Some other aspects of like the end user experience that really serve B2B advertising really well here too is the fact that you're going to be sitting alongside Fortune 500 advertisers that are advertising on CTV aggressively. And that's like sort of the halo effect that no one really ever talks about or ever really studies, but the fact that a upstart B2B brand can really punch above its weight and have an ad sit in an ad break among all of these really sort of household name brands, that can be really impactful for cultivating a perception of your brand in terms of consideration for your prospect. And so these things cumulatively obviously check a box for us from a brand safety standpoint. I feel comfortable running our CTV ads on all of these premium networks. But it also results in better performance. This is the stuff that, these are going to be the impressions that get people to visit our website and ultimately convert, and also usually the first in the sequence of ads that we're actually going to be showing people. Now, all of that being said, social isn't off the table, and I don't want anyone to leave here saying, Ali told me I don't need to advertise on LinkedIn anymore because everyone watches TV now. That's not at all the point. And you know, we ourselves are advertising really aggressively on social as well. But the point here is that you know, social provides a different end user experience than it does when someone's sitting on their couch and watching TV. And you have to think about these things in a complementary way. And so a recurring theme in this presentation is going to be this idea of kind of carrying over everything that you know about digital marketing tactics and applying it to CTV. Don't think of CTV as a carryover of linear TV, broadcast TV advertising where it's immeasurable and hard to target. It's not. It's really just programmatic advertising. And so you could carry over that same sensibility into this. And so, for example, one of the things that we do is we retarget users with social. We serve a ton of CTV impressions. That drives a ton of traffic to our website. And then we fill up all of our retargeting pools across all of the social channels. And that does really well for us, especially because there's a significant amount of traffic that's driven from our CTV campaigns. And where that leaves us is social doesn't need to do the heavy lifting for us anymore. I've been in so many situations as a B2B marketer where I'm like highly dependent, sorry LinkedIn, on LinkedIn. And like I didn't want to be. It was just, and I feel like there's still a lot of B2B marketers that feel beholden to LinkedIn advertising. And again, don't misinterpret this as saying don't do it, but basically the point here is that you don't need to fully depend on it. And when social isn't doing all of the heavy lifting in your advertising strategy, it can be more effective. And that's really sort of important. Now, from a performance standpoint, just to share some metrics, I was just mentioning, we get like an avalanche of traffic to our website every single month from our CTV campaigns. Right now, it's about a quarter of all of our website's traffic, and we really get a decent amount of traffic to our website. A quarter of it's attributed to our CTV campaigns. Some subset of that is going to go ahead and actually convert. We're doing this for demand gen purposes. So a subset of that 25% is going to come to the website, sign up for an account, or request a demo with our sales team. But for those that don't, it's totally fine. Bless you. Those users are going to be retargeted on a wide variety of social platforms, and it's going to continue the messaging with them. And one thing that we've observed is a halo effect from running CTV campaigns. Just for starters, with regards to the performance of CTV campaigns, we've seen longer average session duration and versus paid search and paid social. It's not to say it's better, it's just showing that these users are engaged after seeing a TV ad. But also just the fact that we get this halo effect. We see a 22% stronger conversion rate when we have someone in their sort of journey on the way to converting, having both a paid search click and also a CTV impression. And so, you know, other things that we've kind of observed too is just improved performance on channels like social and email. And it makes sense. This is TV doing what TV does really best. It's a really captivating channel for people to really get their message out. And in this case, it's a rising tide that's lifting all boats. Now, I've done a ton of paid search advertising in my career, and one of the things that I'd say to you all, for those specifically who have a lot of experience with search advertising, is that you can carry over so much of what you know with regards to paid search advertising into the realm of CTV when you're specifically using a platform like Mountain. And what I mean by that are, there's just a lot of aspects of it that are going to feel very familiar to you, starting with budget optimization. As I'll get to in a moment, there's a whole concept of keywords that could be applied to the world of connected television. A/B testing, in the same way that you're probably really diligently doing A/B testing of your different creative and your different audience targeting, you could do the same on television as well. In fact, it's really recommended that you actually approach it that way. As we talked about, brand safety is critical, and when your delivery is constrained to really premium networks, this is something that you really just don't need to worry about, which is nice. And then finally, creative barriers. In a platform like MNTN, it's totally self-serve, just like any other sort of like performance marketing channel that offers some sort of video component. My team creates tons of variations of ads, and every week is just uploading a new variation and launching the ad almost instantly. And so that is giving us an opportunity to be really nimble, test out new creative. And I think this sort of changes the way that a lot of people think about TV advertising. Again, if you're still thinking about TV advertising as, I need a creative agency and I need an insertion order and it's going to be hard to measure and I'll get a Nielsen report at the end of it or some sort of report from the network that tells me what the reach may have been. That's just not the case. This feels just like any other performance marketing channel. Now, a common question that I get from people is, I don't have creative. The idea of a TV commercial is incredibly daunting to people, and it just doesn't really need to be. You're kind of making it big in your own head. You really don't need to think about it in that sort of way. And really my advice to anybody who's in this position, who's kind of excited about the prospect of advertising on TV, but they feel like it's going to be too daunting or too expensive to procure TV creative, the first thing I'd say is just look at what you already have. I suspect that a lot of you are already doing some type of video advertising. So you're sitting on some sort of video asset. The only guidance on that front is you may need to re-encode those video assets just because the minimum specs for CTV are quite high. Just because of the resolution of television, the ad networks sort of demand a really high minimum resolution. So you may likely be able to use the same creative that you're using on social as long as it's cut down to 15 or 30 seconds and it's sort of re-encoded at specs that meet the standards for CTV. But you may very well already be in a position where you can do that advertising. If you don't even have that, I'll give a very shameless plug to QuickFrame. QuickFrame is a marketplace that MNTN acquired a couple of years ago, totally standalone. You could use QuickFrame without even using MNTN. And it's a marketplace of over 5,000 makers, and these are people who are motion graphics artists, animators, directors, anything in between. And they can create any sort of video asset that you like. Very affordably and very quickly. So with a really modest budget, you could just provide some core assets, fill out a project brief, and within a matter of a week or two, you will have TV quality assets. And also, you can use those assets on other channels as well. As well. Let's talk about targeting for a second because this is critical for B2B marketers. Targeting is a lot harder for B2B marketers than it is for B2C marketers who are oftentimes targeting much larger audiences or just rely on some pretty simple generalized demographic targeting. Whereas in B2B, we're really kind of relying on finding the right person. We can't afford to waste any impressions as B2B marketers. And so, MNTN specifically launched something last year called MNTN Matched that I think is really conducive to B2B marketing. And I want to talk about how it works for just a second. So MNTN Matched essentially matches your brand with users that have a high propensity to convert. And the way that this works is as you sign up for an account for MNTN, our generative AI technology is going to sort of scan your website and distill it into a set of keywords. You can edit these keywords however you'd like. You can add or remove whichever keywords, but generally speaking, the software is quite good at being able to identify an initial slate of keywords that are relevant to your brand. And then what ends up happening is it uses these keywords to actually build an audience. MNTN has an identity graph that we maintain. It has over 99% of all households in America. It's being fed a ton of data related to users, and it's really fresh data. If it's older than 30 days, we drop it off the identity graph. It's too old. And this data is made up of life events, of shopping behavior, of web browsing behavior. And we use the keyword matching against the identity graph to be able to match audiences for your campaigns. Now, it gets even more interesting than that. So as you're actually building an audience inside the MNTN platform, you actually see 3 buckets. You see a high intent bucket, a mid intent bucket, medium intent bucket, and a maximum reach bucket. And basically, to launch your campaign, you want to maximize the high intent bucket. This means you're going to be adding keywords, and as you add keywords, you'll see it dynamically increase. Basically, high intent is going to be a direct hit, a direct match between what your keywords are and an audience of people who have a demonstrated interest in what it is that you're actually selling. And then beyond that, medium intent is sort of one level removed from that, where they're generally interested in the category. And the maximum reach, optionally, you can max that out if you just want the maximum reach for your campaign. This has been really impactful for us as a brand. Now, the reason why I'm calling this out in the context of this meeting is B2B marketers, I think, disproportionately sort of benefit from a feature like this, because our targeting tends to be a little bit more complicated or granular than, again, our B2C counterparts. And so really any brand that has trouble or is incredibly particular about the audiences that they're targeting really stands to benefit well from using a tool like Mountain Matched. And as a B2B brand, we've transitioned all of our campaigns, or I should say most of our campaigns outside of things like retargeting, to Mountain Matched. Now, there's other ways to target your users as B2B advertisers. You can do traditional retargeting. So the same way that you already understand retargeting as a digital marketer, you can do with TV. So if you want to retarget users based off of their browsing activity on your website, you can do that. And you could segment your creative accordingly. You can serve different ads to users who are retargeted versus the ads that people see in your prospecting campaigns. In fact, that is a best practice that I'll talk more about in just a moment. You can also do CRM targeting. This is crucial for ABM campaigns. So if you're sitting on audiences, you can upload those audience lists and again, serve different ads to the users who belong to your CRM lists. This has been a game changer for us with our own ABM campaigns. And we've seen B2B marketers kind of utilize this feature in a variety of ways. Either they're segmenting their creative by vertical or some other kind of segmentation criteria that makes sense for their business. But the fact that they're tailoring TV commercials to some sort of characteristic that matters to their business, this is not something that was ever possible in the traditional world of TV advertising. You would never be able to segment your TV campaign to show different ads to people based off of whether they had an awareness of your brand or not. But here we can actually do that. And so what's really fascinating about this, just to kind of recap a couple of these points, is TV advertising is democratized. 93% of all advertisers on Mountain have never advertised on TV before, which is really fascinating to actually see that. And as we talked about, it's providing this kind of halo effect as well. And so we, as advertisers, take advantage of this very stuff. And so just to talk a little bit about how Mountain uses connected television in our own campaigns, one interesting thing is a lot of people know us for our Chief Creative Officer, Ryan Reynolds. And we use Ryan in a lot of our creative. And I suspect some of you that said you were familiar with Mountain, you've probably seen Ryan in one of our ads before, which is great. We love that. But just to give you a little bit of insight on how I actually sort of deploy the use of our creative with Ryan is it's not one size fits all. Because I have some marketing friends that just sort of think that I'm doing this on easy mode because I have Ryan Reynolds involved, where they just say, oh, you just put Ryan out there and the dollars come in. And I wish it was that easy. It really is not. I market to the folks in this room, and I can't patronize you by just putting Ryan Reynolds in front of you and expecting you all to just start using our platform by doing that. What we instead do is, to the whole point of this whole presentation is we rely on digital marketing fundamentals with regards to how we actually approach CTV and our advertising strategy broadly, which is Ryan is very useful and we love him and his creative is hilarious and it's great. And what we do is we use that for the very top of the funnel. And for a lot of people, their first exposure to Mountain is by way of some sort of campaign that we're doing with Ryan. And we love that. That's great. It's working really well for us. But one observation that we had is that for people who are mid to lower funnel, we don't really need that Ryan creative anymore. And it's because that Ryan creative is meant to acquaint you with what Mountain is. But once you're already acquainted with Mountain, now I don't want to squander those subsequent impressions with those prospects. And so we actually have creative that doesn't include Ryan, believe it or not. We have creative that doesn't include Ryan. And it's that creative that is, it's actually, we use voiceover from our video guy. Our video producer just narrates those ads himself. So if you see an ad for Mountain and Ryan's not in it, that's Ben. That is Ben Conley, our video producer, who's actually narrating it. But what we're doing there, it's not rocket science. It's kind of, digital marketing 101 here. We're just featuring key aspects of the platform that we want people to know about. You already know what Mountain is. Now let's talk about the features of the platform that are going to be useful to you. We have a strong CTA at the end of the ad that asks you to sign up now. Visit the website and sign up now. And just doing this provided a significant increase in performance for us. We sort of doubled our website visits from our advertising campaign. We cut our cost per acquisition in half just by minding traditional sort of concepts of digital marketing. Just by thinking of the digital marketing funnel and advertising accordingly, we were able to actually see a significant increase in the performance of our campaigns. And so this sort of kind of reinforces this point of just rely on your sensibilities as digital marketers. Don't kind of put CTV on this pedestal of, it's TV, it needs to be treated totally differently. That's not the case. Think of it as another performance marketing channel and plan accordingly. What's also great too is from a measurement standpoint, you can measure it just like you do the other performance marketing channels that you're using. That's really important for us. And so to sum up here, just to kind of reiterate some of these points, first, brand safety, again, it's different in the case of B2B, and if brand safety is important for you, CTV is a great place to be advertising, specifically using a platform like Mountain, where all of the inventory is constrained to really premium networks. Because in that case, we've done the work for you in terms of just making sure that all of the placements are going to be inherently brand safe. Second, just digital marketing, just bring your own sensibilities to this. With a platform like Mountain, it's totally self-serve. It's not mystical. You don't need an agency to do it. We have certifications if that's your thing to really kind of dig into a platform. But I suspect a lot of people who are really kind of proficient digital marketers, it's something that you'll intuitively be able to do without much effort. And finally, just CTV's been democratized. As B2B marketers, we're constantly looking for differentiation. A point that I keep making at B2BMX every year is the fact that we're all using the same playbook, fundamentally. Everybody is. All your competitors, we're all doing the same things, right? Everyone's doing LinkedIn ads. Everyone's doing landing pages, white papers. Maybe if you got some cash, you're doing like a Forrester report. Those are expensive. But we're all doing the same things. And as B2B marketers, we need to identify areas where we can differentiate, pull away from that playbook in some sort of way. And despite the fact that I'm seeing a lot of B2B marketers take CTV seriously, it's still not being taken seriously enough. I'm not being overwhelmed with B2B advertising, which I think serves you all really well. It's an affordable channel that provides a ton of impressions that will really pull you away from your competition. So really keep that in mind. And that's all I got. Thank you so much, everyone. See ya.